King Cerulean, cursed into the form of a blue bird, flew to see his beloved Princess Florine, locked in a tower by her stepmother Queen Repiara. After explaining to Florine what had happened, the two met each night, with the bird king flying to and from his kingdom with dainty gifts for her. But now Repiara and Florine's stepsister Mina have discovered the two lovers together. Repiara arranged for servants loyal to them to watch Florine in the tower, and hunters to be stationed outside it, with orders to shoot any blue bird they spotted, and ordered the windows of the tower to be nailed shut. Cerulean, his courage bolstered by love, not knowing about the windows, made a daring attempt to fly to the window the following evening, but the keen-eyed hunters spotted him, and it took all his concentration not to be caught by one of their arrows. Finally, accepting that it would be better to use his life to find a way to free himself from his curse, or some method of freeing Florine, he flew back to his hollow tree to recover. The following morning, he went to set off back to Laguna, but the hunters had seen the direction he had flown the night before, and had heard the local rumors about the spirit of the tree, and had been camping outside. Once more, Cerulean had to fly deftly to avoid being shot down. He did manage to avoid the arrows, but as he did so, he struck his wing against a tree branch. But he soon had enough distance from the hunters to fly free, until reaching the borders of his kingdom. It had not been announced to the people of Laguna that their king had been transformed, but the palace had been officially refusing visitors. But citizens could still send requests and messages by letter. Some of these Cerulean had given his judgment on, whenever he had been visiting to collect gifts for Florine. Otherwise, he delegated responsibility to the aged magician Idro, a wise and loyal man who had served Cerulean's father. It was Idro who had provided the magical frogs that had now sadly been cooked and eaten with gusto by the fairy Susi. Cerulean relayed the latest events in Alni with Repiara and the hunters. Now that you're here, my liege, we must consider again what to do about your situation. I regret that I have still not found a means of breaking the curse. Could we not simply announce it to the people? Asked Cerulean. You could, of course, but we can't predict how they will react. You still have the goodwill inherited from your father, and, frankly, your own noble character. Many would still happily accept your rule. There's more to fear from your cousins, our neighbors, and you know the Merchants' Guild is always looking for an excuse to make Laguna a republic. They already have their suspicions after your long absence from the public eye, and their requests for an audience have been growing less polite. I fear you're right, Master Idro. But I will not marry Mina to end the curse. In truth, at this point, I wonder if she would even accept my proposal. Back in Alni, there had been a sudden change of fortunes. King Hanir had died suddenly. When Repiara announced this and told the people not to fear, that she would rule them in the same spirit that her husband had done, loud voices from the crowd asked of Florine. Surely she should inherit the throne from her father. When Repiara insisted that the princess had been locked away due to her shameful actions, the same loud voices expressed their doubt. Before long, the crowd were all swept up in the same righteous fury as these ringleaders, and together they stormed the palace to search for Florine. Repiara and Mina screeched at the palace guards to protect them and repel the people, but, sensing the change in the queen's fortunes, and unwilling to harm the people of Alni, the guards instead allowed the protesting crowd in. Some even showed them the way to Florine's tower. As such, the potential for violence was greatly diffused. With the crowd focused on following the guards to save their beloved princess, Repiara and Mina took the opportunity to sneak away and flee the palace, heading for Susi's to take sanctuary and counsel. Since being separated from her beloved Cerulean, Florine's health and state of mind had deteriorated, but the affection and concern she felt from her subjects when they found her comforted her and gave her strength. A few days later, she was crowned as Queen of Alni. Not long after, She assembled all those who served in the castle, guards, maids and servants, gardeners and so on. Even though many of them had facilitated her stepmother's cruelty towards her, Queen Florine was quick to make it clear that she forgave them all and asked them sincerely to assist her ensuring that the palace was well run and that the people of the kingdom could live happily. At this, many of those who had felt guilty or ashamed of what they had done began to weep or drop to their knees. Following this, she added her plea that they could carry this out in her absence for a while, as she intended to travel to Laguna to visit Cerulean. She asked them to forgive her for leaving them so soon after her coronation. None in the court knew the truth about the king of Laguna's transformation, not even those who had served Repiara. They had only been told that the bird was an evil spirit. Word had spread through the neighbouring kingdoms of Florine's ascent to the throne, but had yet to reach as far as Laguna. The new queen had considered sending a messenger to Laguna before embarking herself, with the hopes of confirming that Cerulean was indeed there, but, impatient with love, instead chose a small retinue of soldiers to escort her as she travelled by carriage, dressed as a peasant, wearing a hood. Alni was a landlocked kingdom, so they were to head west to the border into the neighbouring kingdom of Fidela, and travel to Laguna by boat from the port at Urpor. To reach Urpor, they would need to pass through the western woods, near to the home of Susi. Meanwhile, after considering their options, Idro and Cerulean decided to visit Susi themselves, and try to convince her to end the curse. Idro and the fairy were old acquaintances. Individuals who were adept at magic were very rare in the kingdoms, and most of the small number knew each other to some extent. But the question was, who could they leave in charge in their absence? Finally, they settled on the head priest of Laguna's cathedral, Father Tresio. But Cerulean and his advisor's journey to Alni would be much simpler than Florine's to Laguna. Idro transformed himself into a bird, and the two of them flew from the palace straight for the western woods of Alni.